Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. This is your host, Kevin. And this week we're going to be doing the 1971 science fiction classic, The Omega Man, starring Charlton Heston. For those of you guys just joining us for the first time, the B Movie Club is like a book club where I will post on our site on YouTube at KD9575, on our Facebook page, the original B Movie Club, also on Twitter at KD9575. Early in the week I will post what movie we're doing, and then you can send me your comments, questions, favorite scenes, favorite quotes, and we'll talk about it on the show. Like I said, please go to our YouTube page and subscribe. It is totally free and money back guaranteed. You get what you pay for. Also go to our Facebook page and click the little thumbs up symbol, and then you can get all of our updates. So there you go. The Omega Man. Charlton Heston is literally the last man on Earth. A vicious plague swept through the world and killed everybody. He was able to survive because he's an army scientist and was able to come up with the vaccine just in time, in the very nick of time, and save himself. Sadly not quick enough to save anybody else. Unfortunately, those people who are plague victims, not all of them died instantly. Quite a few of them are still around as these kind of crazed albino mutant people who are basically they're angry at Charlton Heston, like many of us are, for basically being a symbol of the old ways that in their mind caused the plague, the over-reliance on technology and science and things like that. So they're kind of like a cult, essentially, and they're out to kind of wipe him off the face of the earth as the last vestige of the old way, essentially. And like I said, they're crazy albinos. Like the plague, they don't really go into the ins and outs of the plague. Some people just drop dead. Some people are like, I've got the plague, but I still look normal. Other people are like I said, these crazy albino mutants with like these white eyes and all their hair is white, and they're just not very pleasant to be around. So it was filmed in 1971, but it takes place in like the late 70s, so it's supposed to be kind of the future. So he's basically all alone. So after a few years of this, he's like talking to himself. He has like a bust of Julius Caesar in his apartment that he talks to. What can I tell you? Eventually, basically, so at night, because they're albinos, they're afraid of the sun, so they come out at night and try to attack him in his little fortress. But he's so well fortified they can't get in. Also, he's got guns. They refuse to use guns because, again, that's the old way. So they use like catapults and kind of weird stuff like that. By day, Charlton Heston, the character's name is Robert Neville, he goes out and tries to hunt down their nest, if you will, and try to put them out. Over the course of the movie, he meets some other normal people who, again, are plague victims but aren't at that stage yet where they're crazy albinos. He's able to use his blood to create a serum that can cure them, and I don't want to give too much away. One thing leads to another. So it is kind of a post-apocalyptic scene of Los Angeles, crazy zombies. He's the last guy. He's trying to save a few pockets of normal, healthy, relatively speaking, plague victims. So there you have it. There's the whole plot. I don't want to give everything away. I want to leave some surprises out there. It is streaming instantly on Netflix, so if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. The movie was based on a book from the 50s called I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. And it's a similar plot in the sense that there's a plague. He was a military doctor. He comes up with a serum to save himself. But everybody else, instead of being turned into crazed mutants, they're all turned into vampires. So there's that thing. A few years later, in the 60s, they made the movie The Last Man on Earth, based upon this book, and it follows it pretty closely. It starred Vincent Price. In the 70s, where we are now. They did Omega Man, which is, they got rid of all the vampire stuff and replaced them with the albino mutant zombie people. The author of the book wasn't really that irritated by it because, hey, you know, it was such a departure, it was called a different name, he wasn't too irritated about it. And then, of course, more recently, within the last couple of years, Will Smith was in I Am Legend, which was kind of a, you know, a harken back to that original script, but I don't know what those things were in that movie. I mean, I guess they're kind of like vampires, look like aliens to me. I don't know what they are. People talk about, what does that title mean, I Am Legend? At the risk of spoiling everything, the book came out, you know, 70 years ago. Essentially, he's like become, as the last man on Earth, he's basically become the boogeyman to the vampires, because while they sleep, during the day, he goes out and is killing them. So he's become kind of this mythic figure within the vampire circles. So they don't really deal with that in the movie, and there's no discussion of that in the other movies. So there you go. The book was excellent. I actually haven't seen the Vincent Price version. Omega Man, like I said, is something totally different. Will Smith's version, not that great. Anyway, so rush out and read the book. I highly recommend that as well. Omega Man, like I said, is kind of a departure. And this is also during that period when Charlton Heston, and I've talked about this before, when in the late 60s, early 70s, he was pumping out these crazy science fiction movies. He did Planet of the Apes a couple years earlier, like I'd said on a previous episode. A few years later, he did Soylent Green. Soylent Green is made out of people. I always have to say that every time I talk about Soylent Green. Spoiler alert. This movie is actually mentioned as like a favorite of a lot of people, Omega Man. Tim Burton actually talks about how it's one of his favorites from way back when. He thinks it's one of those first movies that dealt with kind of that, what's now become the prototypical action hero with a lot of one-liners. Charlton Heston rolling through town with his shirt off a lot. Don't ask me why. Kind of cracking wise in spite of these bizarre circumstances. He felt it kind of directly inspired the Arnold Schwarzeneggers and Sylvester Stallones that came later. So there you go. It's also noteworthy because this is one of the first interracial kisses and relationships that occurs on the screen. Charlton Heston has a little love interest in the movie who's African American, and they kiss on screen. And years later, Whoopi Goldberg asked him about it, that investigative journalist we all know Whoopi to be. And he leaned forward and kissed her too. So, what can I tell you? Charlton's just that kind of guy. Anyway, so this was a fine film. It's a hokey, I mean, online I posted that one man living in a honky paradise. The reason why I wrote that is because there's a scene in the movie where two of the mutants are like sitting down below like his fortress where he's got like TV and he's got stereo system, he got lights and power and all this other stuff going on. And they were kind of looking up there going, he's up there in his, and then the one African-American mutant turns to me and says, honky paradise, brother? It was hilarious. Again, it's the early 70s. It is like the height of the black exploitation film era. So there were some kind of subtle references to that. So you have that. Like I said, good film. It got a 60% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of people that I spoke to when I posted that up there, they were like, I love Omega Man. It's one of my favorites. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's obviously a different kind of film. It's from, you know, so many years ago. But check it out. It is streaming instantly on Netflix. Next week, I'm going to be going back to my comedy roots. On Friday nights on Facebook, I always post up a question, offer a couple movie suggestions. Which movie would you like me to talk about? And again, I always open it up to subscribers to the show, people who like the Facebook page. And overwhelmingly, they want me to do the Steve Martin comedy from the late 80s, Roxanne, which is based upon Cyrano de Bergerac, as you all know, I'm sure. Anyway, so I'll be doing that next week, so look forward to that. Send me any of your favorite scenes, favorite quotes, comments, or questions about Roxanne. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to like our page on Facebook. And don't forget to tell a friend. tell them to subscribe as well. The more the merrier, I always say. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote, and here it is. There's never a cop around when you need one. That's my truly horrible Charlton Heston impression. I'm only good at it when he's talking about Soylent Green is made out of people. Soylent Green is made out of people. Anyway, thank you for joining us. Next week, Roxanne. Be well.